this might be a bit of a challenge for Ed with Elie on the play. He's going to be keen to find cloud kickers early to try to slow down Elie's tempo. The problem is Elie runs a bajillion warded characters, or characters to give his characters wards. So if Elie can get some of those on the board, some of Ed's answers are not going to do it for him. And I'm looking at this here because one of the other answers for Ed, or in these colors usually, is Madam and Fox, which you can play on turn 3 to challenge into something, but I don't see any run in Ed's list. So some of the cards that he would like to have to banish character, or for character-on-character challenges fast in the early game, Ed's not running those. So I think he's going to want to go wide, perhaps leverage Merlin Crab in the early game paired with some Diablos to get into some of those characters, and find his way into a Cricky in the mid-game in order to get over Ed, or Elie is probably fairly wide board at that point.
And it shows an example of the different play styles that actually have potential against different decks, right? Because if you're ever against something that, like a Ruby deck that might be running Sisu or B-Prep, or even an Emerald deck that has something like Under the Sea, you really need to be careful about going too wide, because if you overcommit to the board and they play one of these big cards and break the board, then you're kind of crying, in my opinion. But in this particular matchup, no board wipes, so both players free to extend as much as they want. But we do appear to be in the altering phase. Chiu throwing back 5 cards, just keeping 2. And it seems that Elie on the other side got 3 cards on the table. Are those the ones he wants to keep, or are those the ones he wants to send back to the deck? I imagine they're the ones he wants to send back to the deck, because he has a Daisy and a Lady in hand. And that is indeed what happens. We find that Ana braving the storm, and I think that Restoring the Heart was still in hand as well, which is really interesting. 1-drop dual link for Amber Sapphire. You can heal up to 3 damage from a character and draw a card.
Yeah, and we see, I got a good look at Elie's hand, not so much at Ed's, but Elie with 2 Daisy Ducks in there, Lady Family Dog. He's in for a very fast opening here.
You can kit Daisy. That is one thing.
That is true.
Yeah, but you talked about the relevance of the ward keyword, which is so relevant in this matchup, where Ed's running things like, you mentioned the kit. There's also things like we don't talk about Bruno. And one of my favorite new cards, Wrong Lever!
Wrong Lever! Why do we even have that lever?
For you, but just to make you cry. But yeah, Wrong Lever and cards like Bruno, etc. do indeed choose a character. So ward will be a very useful keyword for Elie, but this Daisy does not have it. So hopefully we've got a kit to be able to take some of that early pressure off.
Well, let's see, we're getting a little bit of a look at Ed's hand now, and he has some of the cards he wants. He does have that kit. He has a number of Diablos here, and he has the Crab as well, so we can get a Diablo on the board early, establish another character on turn 2, and on turn 3, that Crab is available to make those Diablos a little more powerful to challenge into something they need to remove. Unfortunately, not enough to overcome the Daisy with that Diablo plus the Crab, but Ed does have cards to answer here, so we'll see how fast Elie can start and how quickly Ed can answer.
And being on the play is huge, of course. Ed, you can see it on the screen there, first seed with a 5-0 record. There were 7 rounds, but as soon as you got your 5-match wins, you were done for the day. So Edmond decided, okay, I've got my 5-match wins, I'm going to go and relax. So as a result of that, he is first seed, and this is seeded. The player with the highest seed gets to choose if they're going to be on the play or on the draw. So against this sort of aggro deck, being on the play is huge. We're going to see Ana sent to the Inkwell, and down comes Donald's Date. Speaking
of aggro, that's one of the most aggro cards in the game right now. 4 willpower, difficult to remove. It coming down on turn 1. It does have the disadvantage of when you quest with it, your opponent gets to look at the top card of the deck. If it's a character, they can put it in hand. Hopefully, you're hoping your opponent misses. At the very least, you get some information, but the drawback there is definitely worth it if you're looking to be aggressive early.
To be fair, there are 4, 8, 12, 16 non-character cards, which are 4 friends, 4 pull the lever, 4 wrong lever, and 4 we don't talk about Bruno. But Chiu going into turn 2, just playing another Diablo on turn 2, also questing with the one already there. And you mentioned the Crab, the Merlin Crab's ability to boost up this Diablo and make some nice challenges, although the 3 strength that Diablo would hit, not enough to take out this Daisy. But down comes Duke Weaselton, I don't know at this point, but a very aggro character.
Weaselton in this instance.
Peter Pan Shadowfinder also in Ed Chiu's list is going to be a really good card in this particular matchup. Of course, having Rush and Evasive and giving Rush to your evasive characters. And there we do indeed see that Shadowfinder come down onto the board. We're going to quest with a couple of burbs, but now we are threatening the turn 4 giant spectral parrot, Iago, who does have that evasive keyword, meaning while the Shadowfinder's on the board, it will be a Rush 4/6 body. Elie umming and ahhing what he wants to ink here. I see a Wendy Darling in hand. I do see that Thunderbolt as well. We don't have a puppy yet, but we're going to go wide. Turn 3 Lady, which allows us to play a cost 2 or less character for free. So we're going to play a second Duke Weaselton, and then we're just going to pass. Elie showing a lot of patience here, understanding the threat of the Merlin Crab isn't so bad, but the Iago Spectral Parrot coming down with Rush is huge. So Elie looking for the right turn to turn everything sideways.
Yeah, Elie definitely playing a patient game here. He does have that Thunderbolt in hand. It seems his game plan right now, because right now Ed doesn't have anything which can answer his ready characters other than perhaps bouncing with a Cloud Kicker. On turn 5, we'll have Elsa available, which will be very dangerous for any ready characters. But until that point, Elie's hoping to establish that Thunderbolt, that really big bodyguard to protect his characters and force Ed to devote several characters to removing that threat, leaving fewer to challenge his smaller characters. But oh my goodness, look at this going wide. That's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 lore on the board for Elie. Elie now deciding, do I want to put any of these characters at risk? And no, he's going to pass it back over. That's 12 lore, more than half of the lore you need to win the game sitting over there now.
This one makes sense to me with the Alice seeing coming into play. Of course, when she quests, you can give ward and another lore pip to another character. So wanting to wait until we can perhaps ward something up and get some extra lore out of it. But yeah, Elie's showing a lot of restraint. And we mentioned this yesterday. Sometimes the best turns in Disney Lorcana can be ink pass or ink play a couple of characters, but don't turn anything sideways. Identify the right turn. Elie just pairing up the characters on board that have the same name. A couple of daisies, a couple of dukes, a lady and an Alice. But Edmond does come in with that 5th spirit Elsa.
A really important card to have on this turn. Otherwise, Elie's just going to sit there, build up that board, getting even 2 lore off the board here. Super impactful. So Ed having a lot of the cards that he wanted to have early. And looking, he's not the aggro deck in theory, but he's pushed his lore all the way to 9. Definitely on plan here. Elie's going to hope to drop that Thunderbolt next turn, or several other high lore characters, and try to close out this game in 1 or 2 turns. But Ed pushing the tempo here.
Yeah, 100%. That Thunderbolt is a 5-cost character, but you can shift it onto a puppy for a cost of 3, but no puppies on the board at the moment. That lady is no longer a puppy. She does not have that puppy characterization, so we can't shift onto her. So we're doing some maths here, but you are absolutely right, Liam. Ed able to jump up to 9 lore. These Diablos just been sitting there questing away, tempting Elie like, come on, take out my burb, let me draw a card, turn your character sideways, and let me respond. But Elie showing a lot of patience. Down comes another Alice. Savvy Sailor. I'm seeing double.
Double Alice. Alice's. Alice.
Alice-I.
Alice-I. Multiple Alice-I there sailing across the board. Again, these characters give ward and additional lore when they quest. So that means, if you do the math, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Public math is dangerous, but 14 lore with those Alice's questing. And Elie now thinking again, do I put any of my characters at risk? Ed has 3 characters on the board which can respond. Elie doesn't know. We know that there's a crab in hand unless Ed inked it without us noticing. So Ed will be able to respond pretty strongly to any characters who go questing this turn.
Yeah, 100%. Elie doing the famous finger maths. I think we've all done this at some point in our Lorcana careers. Are you a pointer or are you a conductor? Let us know in chat. What's your method for doing some maths? But we are going to exert a quest with this Alice, and I believe that was an indication that we are giving ward and an extra lore to the Daisy Duck.
8, 9, 10, 11. 11 lore, and now Ed quickly doing math now of his own, trying to figure out his response here and how to ideally and efficiently remove as many characters as possible to what he has available.
Yeah, a huge lore burst there from Elie from these characters. Has been super patient, like waited until this turn to start questing things, and now we're already at 11 lore, and now we are threatening game. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There's 12 lore on board, but technically 14 if you account for Alice's abilities. A collection. They're savvy sailors, so I guess it's a crew of Alice.
That's true. That's true.
They're a crew. They're a crew of sailors.
So with 1 crab in hand, that leaves 4 characters able to respond. So Ed will be able to likely remove 4 of those, leaving 1 up to be chosen by the Alice.
Did we have that crab? Can you get a decent look at Ed's hand there?
We do have the crab.
I think I see a lever in there. I'm not sure if it's a wrong lever or pulled lever.
The crab is there.
Right, that's good. That's going to be super good to allow this Diablo to make a nice challenge into the Lady or the Duke Weaselton. Would be able to trade with that.
Nailed it.
Thank you. Just doing some maths of his own. Again, this is the World Championship. We're in the top 8. This is not the time to rush. We've got plenty of time for these finals. We're only 12 minutes in so far. Best of 3, so take your time. This is what it's all about. You've worked your whole Lorcana career, and we are going to commit. The crab comes down, give Challenger 3 to that Diablo Obedient Raven. The Raven is going to trade into Duke Weaselton and draw a card, courtesy of that Diablo. One of the best one-drops in the game, Liam.
Absolutely. It sits there, it gets lore. If you banish it, you get a card out of it.
I love a card, thanks.
And it makes a heck of a crab target if it sits around there for a while. So very good. Very good use of the card there.
And this Iago Giant Spectral Power, 1 damage on it. Just an absolute beast. Obviously, these illusions have that vanish keyword. If they're targeted by an action, then they are indeed banished straight away. I need to double check if Restoring the Heart can target opposing characters, because if so, that could be an interesting way of getting rid of this Iago. I'll just double check. But outside of that, not a lot of ways that we could target this illusion. And this Iago's Giant Spectral Parrot next to the Peter Pan Shadowfinder is a match made in Lorcana heaven.
Ed sizing up these blockers here, figuring how he's going to allocate them. That Peter Pan will challenge into the Duke Weaselton. 1 damage there on the Peter Pan. And then Elsa will clean up that lady, leaving the Daisy Duck Donald's date on the board along with the Alice.
Restoring the Heart. Yep, so remove up to 3 damage from chosen character or location. So Restoring the Heart is a way that we could remove this Iago if we want to. It might be a bit late now. We see Edmond going even wider and a smile on both players' face. I think they see the writing on the wall here. We do find Thunderbolt, which is not bad.
But a top deck of a Popsicle, not super helpful. I mean, we did need the ink if we were going to play the Thunderbolt, but just, unfortunately, Ed with so much strength on that side of the board, a crab which can challenge in as well and give something else challenger upon removal. Ed probably has the tools he needs to deal with most everything, but that Thunderbolt will go into bodyguard position as it comes into play, and now we'll have 5 lore available on the quest to allow Elie to go up to 16.
Which isn't quite enough. Doing some maths over on Ed's side of the board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lore potential. So we could go to 17. We are going to quest with Alice and Daisy for another 5 lore, I assume, as long as Alice quested first to give an extra lore pip to that Daisy.
And you have to go this route at this point because Ed has managed to push his lore total so high.
Yep.
There's really not a scenario where you can leave your characters upright in order to protect them and wait for further turns to kind of close out the game. If Ed is challenging into Elie's characters to keep him from winning, he's not questing himself, and Elie really forcing Ed to respond here, and that's his way of slowing down Ed from winning the game. We do have that ability activated off the Daisy Duck. Ed will find a Peter Pan Shadowfinder. Put that in his hand and is back over to Ed for the response.
Yep, we're going to draw a card. Either a crab or a wrong lever there, but we found the Peter Pan Shadowfinder off the top, courtesy of the Daisy Duck trigger, and I don't see any reason for us not to just extend as much as we can. We do need to deal with Elie's board, to your point, though, Liam. Threatening game currently, and even, we're at 14, so it would be exactly game plus 1 lore for the Alice, so the potential to go to 21, but we need to take out this bodyguard character before we can touch anything else. But if we can just deal with the bodyguard, then we can probably turn everything else sideways and feel pretty confident that we're going to be winning this race. What would be the best way to do that? Maybe something along the line. Oh, okay, we're not even going to engage in challenges. We're going to say,
lever.
There you go, exactly. If there's a pull the lever in your discard, you may put a card at the bottom of their player's deck. But if there's no pull the lever, then it's just return it to their hand, but which is also a very good card. We've seen Mother Knows Best see tentative play for a while, but here we go. The board absolutely cleared up, removing the bodyguard, and that's it. He's going to extend the hand, and Ed Chiu wins game 1 of this top 8 match of the World Championship on the play, first seed. What a start, Liam.
What a fantastic. So here I am saying Ed might have trouble navigating this with the removal options available. Ed showing it's no trouble there, going wide pretty early, gathering some lore, putting himself into that aggressive position and forcing Elie to turn his character sideways perhaps earlier than he wanted to, because Ed was going to threaten game here before too long. Elie not able to find, he loves this line where he shifts Puppy and Thunderbolt on turn 4 in order to protect the characters he has up. Wasn't able to find that, and just not able to gather the lore he needed fast enough to prevent Ed from taking that game.
Yeah, the play being a very strong determining factor there, really. Just Elie just one turn too slow, really, to stay ahead in that race. Maybe on the draw, Edward still would have been able to, you know, apply a slightly different strategy to be able to combat the board and slow Elie down. But in this case, Ed does win and is forced to retire the deck that he just played. Emerald Amethyst now will be done for the remainder of this match, and Ed will be switching to Ruby Sapphire. But what's Elie doing on the other side, Liam?
Well, it seems, according to the graphics, that Elie has elected to put the Amber Sapphire deck away for the moment and bring out his Emerald Steel deck. This is a deck that he probably hasn't played too much throughout the tournament. Most people are banning Steel, pursuing strategies in their lineups to avoid this really powerful deck, which is one of the best decks in Core Constructed right now, I would argue, one of the few Tier 1 decks. Elie now bringing that out on the play into Ed Chiu's Ruby Sapphire deck. That will mean, though, that if Elie wins this game, he'll be forced to play his Amber Sapphire deck on the draw in Game 3.
Yeah, so we might see more of that Amber Sapphire and get another chance to see the puppy shine. But yeah, Emerald Steel, to your point, definitely a deck that has another kind of boogeyman, I guess, in the Lorcana community. Quite often a discard package and running things like the Diablos. We saw Ed utilizing the Obedient Raven in that last match, but will we see a devoted Herald in this particular matchup? Obviously, Ruby Sapphire's strategy here is going to be to ramp as soon as possible. And if you're new to the Lorcana trading card game and you're thinking, what's ramp, Baker? Ramp is just what we use to refer to putting extra cards in your inkwell per turn. So in this Lorcana trading card game, you may ink one card from your hand per turn, as long as it has the inkable flourish. But a lot of Sapphire cards in particular have abilities that allow you to put extra cards into your inkwell. So we refer to that as ramping, just accelerating our ink, able to play high-cost characters, songs, actions, high-cost cards a lot sooner. And these Ruby Sapphire decks playing things like Be Prepared, the Big Sisu. So Ed just hoping to zoom to that sort of 7-8 ink threshold to be able to combat the Emerald Steel strategy. And to be fair, a lot of these Emerald Steel cards do have 2 strength or less, which is what you need for Big Sisu. But you always have to respect the presence of something like Pete, which is going to shut off Be Prepared. And of course, Emerald Steel recently playing things like Pete Space Pirate, who's a big 5/5. So we do have bigger bodies there, Liam.
Yeah, that's true. This is going to be a super fascinating matchup. Elie is going to be looking to put some hand pressure on Ed early if he can, just get some of those extra cards out there to prevent Ed's ramp getting to the resources that he needs to play those sweepers. But the interesting thing about these discard decks is they're not decks in the traditional discard sense that they're looking to put you into top deck mode as soon as possible. And that's kind of what we saw early on when Bucky was running around in the meta, forcing you into top deck mode on turn like 3 or 4. These discard decks put a little bit of hand pressure on, but they're actually kind of value engines. They have multiple ways to draw them quite a few cards, whether you're pursuing the unchecked Diablo-devoted Hero line, or you're going to put a Beast Tragic Hero on the board early, or probably the favorite of these decks, getting a Prince John on the board in the mid to late game, and then forcing your opponent to discard quite a few cards in order to draw off the Prince John trigger. And it's not uncommon in these types of matchups, these games that go along, to see an Emerald Steel player with 20 or so cards in hand in the end game if you get that going. And one of the cards that actually makes this possible now is the recently printed Beyond the Horizon, which has found a really nice home snuggled into these Emerald Steel discard decks. This is a card that allows you to choose any number of players, yourself and perhaps your opponent, force them to discard their entire hand and draw up to 3 cards. Now, you don't have to choose your opponent, but if your opponent has a hand of 7, 8 cards, perhaps your control deck that has managed to draw a lot of cards off of cards like Maurice's Workshop or Popsicles, etc., you're sitting in the end game with 7, 8 cards in hand, and you're playing Emerald Steel, you have a Prince John on board. Forcing your opponent to discard all of those cards to allow you to draw 10 is incredibly impactful.
Yeah, Prince John can get an awful lot of value. He's a greedy boy, but I want to draw attention to one card in this Emerald Steel deck list being piloted by Elie, which is the new Maui Stubborn Trickster from Reign of Jafar. He's a 6-cost inkable 4/4 quest for 3, and the ability, when this card is banished, choose one, either do 2 damage to all opposing characters, or you can banish all opposing locations or all opposing items. Now, this could be extremely relevant in this particular matchup. Ed, not lacking in items. We've got Maurice's Workshop, Fishbone Quill, Popsicles, Lucky Dime, all that sort of... Is there a Lucky... Yeah, there's one Lucky Dime. So we could see a lot of value generated by this Emerald Steel Dual Link Maui, and even 4 McDuck Manors in the list. Oh, is it? Are there?
Yeah. One thing I want to highlight...
Hold on. No, it's 4 Scrooge McDuck Resourceful Miser. Yeah, no manners, but a lot of items that this Maui could have his way with.
One thing to know, Elie with a terrible initial draw, a hand full of uninkables, and if he, luckily he found that morph on turn 2 off the top deck to open up that Beast Tragic Hero shift on turn 3, but his opening hand fairly awful without a turn 1 play there. This is one of the openings that this deck does like. Thank goodness he found that morph there, drawing off the deck on turn 2, allowing him to unlock this Beast. This Beast will quest for 2 and give him some extra draw and kind of force a response from Ed, but without that, Elie would have been in a very rough spot.
You are absolutely right. That is not the sort of hand you want to see in the World Championship. But yeah, that turn 3 shifted Beast is absolutely huge. And Elie, again, this is open deck list. They reviewed each other's lists. Edmond on the item build of Ruby Sapphire. If this was like a DK piece, a Shark build, you might be scared of maybe rush characters like Super Goof, although we're only going into turn 3. So this is a pretty safe quest from the Beast here.
And Elie stuck with those 2 Let the Storm Rage on in his hand. They're uninkable. They're kind of bricks in his hand right now. Not a lot of good targets in the early game, usually from Ed Chiu, unless he plays a Tipo or puts a Bell on board to allow you to target and draw another card. But those 2 cards are fairly useless for him right now.
Yeah, Elie really wants to see Ed play a character here so that he could storm it. Even if it's not taking it out, we're going to see the Fishbone Quill, ink the Brawl, play the Fishbone Quill, and we're just going to ink. But thankfully, Elie is going to get to draw 2 cards here. 1 courtesy of the Tragic Hero and 1 for turn. And we find a Morph and a Prince John. At least we can ink, Liam.
At least we can ink something. That is true.
Yeah, I imagine this is probably going to be an ink Morph, and then it's either the Diablo or one of the Prince Johns, although we don't have any discard at the moment. But sometimes just getting the Prince John down just to threaten it when you do find the discard is good, but also getting this Diablo online is fairly reasonable. I wonder which Elie is going to opt for. It's interesting as well sometimes because if he missed ink, you might have had to have stormed your own Beast just to draw a card, which then shuts off the ability to draw extra cards. I'm not saying he would have done that, but you might have not been less of a lot. Not if you want to ink, you might have to.
You might have to. And in fact, that's probably the play, to be honest. Elie electing to go with the Diablo here. He won't be able to use his ability this turn. It only works when it's exerted. But when it's exerted next turn, he'll get to draw a card each time Ed draws a card on his turn.
But with this Fishbone Quill, we can now ink up to 6 this turn. We are going to pay 1 for Vitalosphere, and then we're going to play down Scrooge McDuck, Resourceful Miser. A really fascinating card. You may exert 4 items to play it for free, and then you can look at the top 4 cards of your deck and choose an item to go into your hand. And Scrooge does find that Maurice's Workshop, the engine that really gets this all going. And now the Brawl for the Diablo. Pretty nice start from Ed.
With no more Hiram Flavisham around, these workshops are doing work now, propelling these decks into the end game.
Right.
You really want to find it at this point in the game, so hitting that off the Scrooge feels really good. Ed then brawling that Diablo, getting it off the board, not allowing Elie to draw any more cards. 2 off the Beast is enough, he says.
Yeah, 2 will do. That's good enough for me. But yeah, Elie with a really tense start with that brick of uninkables, but he has seemed to draw his way out of it. We're going to ink a Diablo, and down comes a second Tragic Hero Beast.
Not a terrible card to find right here. Of course, as you pointed out, Baker, we're getting very close to Be Prepared territory, but we know Ed doesn't have one in hand just yet, but it's something that will be scary. But if those beasts can stay online for a couple turns even, getting 2 cards per turn, off, 1 off each one is great.
Hey, even 1 turn, because Ed's only technically 2 turns away from Be Prep if you account for the Fishbone Quill in play, because when the Fishbone Quill allows you to put another card from your hand into your inkwell, it doesn't even need to be inkable, and it comes in ready, so you can utilize that ink straight away. So just this 1 turn of drawing 3 cards, courtesy of 2 beasts and a draw for turn, is pretty good. We're going to play down the Maurice's Workshop, and we're going to exert 4 more items to play another free Scrooge McDuck. Of all characters that I think love the word free, it's probably Scrooge.
That is true. And Ed missing there. A couple crabs, a Sisu going to the bottom of the deck, so no item was found off that Scrooge. Fun note, as we're staring at Scrooge there, I like to talk about art every now and then. Scrooge McDuck is by Scottish artist Kenny Anderson. When I asked Kenny, when he did art in set 1, if he had a dream card to do, and he said there's very few Scottish characters in the world of Disney animation, but if he got to draw a character, he would pick Scrooge McDuck. So we were very excited to see this card out. Disney is about making dreams come true, and Kenny's dream came true by getting to draw this character in official capacity.
Yeah, this is a really fantastic new card. A quick shout out to content creators, the 2 Scrooges who like to sit and complain about different, I'm joking, not really complain, but they like to evaluate Lorcana and very much embody Scrooges. So shout out to you guys, but this game still hard and swinging. Elie, a couple of Prince Johns in hand, but we haven't seen a single discard tool as far as I could tell.
But a trio of beasts on the board. Elie seeming to find all of them this game, or almost all of them. So those will continue to draw him cards unless Ed finds an answer. Without a Sapphire Coil on board, if he gets to a Sisu, that won't do it. So Ed, hoping at some point for a Be Prepared. Elie has been happy to leave those beasts standing upright, ready, drawing him cards, not putting them at risk to being challenged into by those Scrooges. But here comes Ed, not crabby at all to play this Tamatoa, happy as a clam, who's going to pull back a couple items. Did we have anything in the discard pile there, Baker?
Not that I can see.
All right, so just a big body on the board, but a body that will allow him to get items in play for free if he's allowed to quest next turn.
Did we pop our own Popsicle to maybe recur that?
I don't remember having a Popsicle.
I thought there was at some point, but perhaps potentially not, I guess.
Well, there is one in hand, so perhaps I missed that.
Yeah, because I think it was a turn 1 Popsicle from Ed, so it makes sense that you would pop that and bring that back. So able to get some value from that Tamatoa. We are going to be inking Pete.
So interesting decision here. So if you are scared of the Be Prepared on next turn, you can play a Pete. Now, Elie does have another one, and it looks like that's going to be the play. So it is the Be Prepared turn. Elie shutting that off for this turn. We know Ed doesn't have it. Elie doesn't know that. And then going to play a Prince John. So going wide here, and oh my goodness. 5 characters on the board there. That means that Strength of a Raging Fire will do 5.
Yep.
Elie's singing 3 of them to clean up the board. All 3 beasts singing 3 Strength of a Raging Fire. This is probably a line of play that has never been done before in the history of Lorcana. What a fascinating play.
That is a lot of strength. Be a man, you must be. Sorry, I'll calm down.
Oh, you didn't finish.
It's a great song. Look at these beasts, Liam. What do you call a group of beasts?
A herd. A tragedy. A tragedy of beasts.
A tragedy of beasts. Oh, I like that. I think we make that canon, lads. I'm not going to lie. A tragedy of beasts. Very cool.
This board.
And of course, this Pete shutting down actions.
Yeah, so Be Prepared. Even if he had it, wasn't available. It's a really interesting board state here. This is a lot of lore on the board for Elie, unless there's the Sapphire Coil, so that will pair nicely with the Sisu if we find it. We draw another Sapphire Coil off the Maurice's Workshop.
And we do have that bell in hand as well, which we can play for free by banishing an item, but a very scary wide board for Elie. You've got to think that Ed is just waiting for the Be Prepared turn. He has some time. Elie only at 2 lore. And drawing 4 cards. 1 for turn and 1 for each beast. That is incredible, especially considering the uninkable heavy hand that we started with. So Elie has done this. It was the story of the turn 3 beast, right? The shift onto the morph. And since then, we've just been able to snowball and really just take control completely. But Elie, I think, is got to be reading the B prep here. Edmond just playing down a Sapphire Coil, not doing a whole lot other than playing items, so that's pretty readable. But does Elie have another Pete? He doesn't. Does have some discard now, though.
So here it is.
There's the second Prince John. And I think we're going to hear a sudden chill. I would imagine.
I think so. There it is.
Pete giving his best rendition of 101 Dalmatians, Cruella de Vil.
Oh, you always leave me hanging. I'm ready to come in.
Yeah, you just go, brother.
That's okay. I
just go in.
Go, yeah. So Ed being forced to discard a card. Elie gets 2 cards off those Prince John triggers. Beast now, as you we get these storms out of my hand. Beast singing Let the Storm Rage On, doing 2 damage to Pete to allow Elie to draw a card. We do find an Ursula Deceiver there. That's a card that can pick Be Prepared if you manage to shut it down for a turn.
Yep, so we do have options to try and make sure that we keep our board. Yep, and we don't even have it. Ed, sometimes, like, you don't have to have it, right? If your opponent is respecting it, then that's sometimes enough. You know, Elie kind of telegraphed that he might have it by not committing to the board, but Elie taking a look at the hand, not a B prep in sight, a Vision, a Sapphire Coil, and a Vitalosphere, so not even anything that this Ursula Deceiver can snipe away from the hand, but this Vision of the future might help us find the Be Prepared this turn.
And that would do it, because you can ink for turn, you can ink again with the Fishbone Quill, so Visions of the Future plus Be Prepared would do it. Elie now, again, using Let the Storm Rage On.
Are we going to be utilizing that final 3 ink? Because we did sing with one of these beasts to put the damage on Pete with Storm Rage On, whereas we've got 3 ink left over here, and I don't think Elie's going to want to play anything. He knows that there's no B prep, but he knows there's a Vision, so he's still got to respect it as an answer next turn, right? So you know, perhaps we could have got another 2 lore out of that Beast Tragic Hero and just paid 3. But you never know what you're going to draw, right? Maybe, like, Elie was digging for a be prepared response, right? The P or the Ursula. So I respect the play.
And if he picks that be prepared and there's no other card draw in hand, then you play the odds and drop that character on the board. Ed here drawing, not finding that be prepared yet. So let's see if we're going to go that route. There it is, 2 ink, 1, 2,
Bell.
3.
Sisu is good. Workshop, Coil. Okay, well, Sisu is still pretty good, and that is going to be the card that Edmond is going to pocket, and Vision allows you to put the rest of the cards on the bottom of the deck in any order. Sometimes can be relevant, especially if you're playing against whole new world decks, right?
It's pretty good, but unfortunately, we had, I think, just the right amount of ink to get to the be prepared, the 7 ink with that Visions. I don't think we have enough to get to 8.
Oh, we can Fishbone Quill up to 8.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there it is. Yep.
Yep, there it is. This Sisu is going to come down, wipe away the Prince John's, the Ursa Deceiver. Because of the Sapphire Coil. Yeah, Sapphire Coil targeting the beast, lowering the strength. So a huge Sisu off of that Vision of the Future. But to be fair, there are 4 Sisu in the deck. And I believe also 4 B Prep. Is it 4 B Prep? Hold on, is he even playing B Prep? Oh my goodness, guys! We've just assumed there are no be prepared in Edmond's deck. Okay, that's our bad. That is absolutely our bad, guys. That's sometimes just assumptions that you make, right? But that's another layer of psychology, because you're always going to assume that the Ruby decks are going to have be prepared, right? That is fascinating.
And these deck lists are open. Now, Elie may have chose to play that Pete anyway for a variety of reasons, but you saw Elie play around that Be Prepared as if it was there, dropping that Pete on turn before Ed got to 7 ink. Ursula coming down now, taking a look, seeing Ed just has that Sapphire Coil left.
Yeah, that is fascinating. Again, apologies to the audience that we didn't notice that sooner. There are certain cards you just assume that you're going to see. So, yeah, no Be Prepared. And Elie it is open deck lists, but again, most players would be playing it, right? And this is game 2. Maybe forgot for a moment that there aren't any Be Prepareds in the deck. I'm not sure. Nonetheless, we are relying completely on these Sisu empowered siblings. That's crazy.
But here, this is kind of the game state that you expect to see in this deck and in this matchup, honestly. Elie now, with not a full grip of cards, but 4 or 5 cards in hand, plenty of ways to draw cards available. Still, he has that Diablo in hand, that Beast, drawing him an extra card each turn. And Edmond, using a lot of his cards for ink off that Fishbone Quill down to 1 card in hand. Elie putting just a little bit of discard pressure on as well. But it's back over to Ed off the top deck. We'll find a Sail the Azurite Sea. It's a card that'll allow him to find another card.
Yep, Sail obviously providing fantastic ramp to help you ink additionally, and just drawing you another card. Just very powerful. We're going to pop 2 Porpsicles, and that very much telegraphs the following play. We're going to exert 6 ink and play Happy as a Clam. I was a drab little crab once. Come on, Liam.
I don't know that one.
Fair enough, but nonetheless, this Tamatoa is going to come down, recur 2 items from the discard, a couple of Porpsicles, ice cream for everybody, Liam, and this Tamatoa does have an additional ability when he quests. You can play an item for free, and there are indeed Lucky Dimes, Maurice's Workshops, and the such like in the list. So a lot of value on the table can be generated from this Tamatoa.
Yeah, Edmond not too crabby to find that off the top deck there. This is one of the cards that he wants to see at this point in the game. So establishing that, it's back over to Elie.
Tense game so far, 6 lore to 7. If you're only just joining us, welcome back to day 2 of the Disney Lorcana World Championships. This is round 1. We are going to be showing every single top 8 game today. You will not miss a moment of the action, at least not on our end. So welcome on in. This is the first round that we're watching. Edmond Chiu, the North American champion, versus Elie, the DLC champion from Bologna. Game 1 went to Ed. And now we're in game 2, watching Ruby Sapphire versus Emerald Steel, and it's been a slog so far, Liam.
Yeah, it has been a slog so far. What a fantastic match. And this one just taking... This is exactly how I expected this match to go long, with each player managing to get a fairly decent part of their script going here. Elie with a rough early game with his initial draw, but managing to find his way back into it. Now shifting this Diablo onto the Morph, discarding the Baboom, challenging into the Sisu. That Diablo will be online this turn. And back over to Ed for the response. Now, Ed will draw a card. Elie will draw a card with him.
Yep.
And find that 4th Beast Tragic Hero. We've got the full set now. We've seen this game.
There we are. A full house of beast tragedy, of a tragedy of beasts, as you put it. I like that, Liam. I think we're shipping that. There's a tragedy of beasts. The Tamatoa, happy as a clam, is going to go on a little quest, taking us up to 10 lore, and we could play an item for free round if we have one. Let's get our lore down first. Players operating the on-table iPad to help us showing the lore on screen, but also keeping notes themselves, which is very intelligent. I think we're going to be playing a free Marita's workshop, courtesy of this Tamatoa. I think that's what Ed just... Yep, it is indeed a workshop. We're going to play that for free, courtesy of the Tamatoa's ability. We're going to draw a card, courtesy of the workshop, which allows you to draw a card whenever you play an item, if you pay 1 ink. And Elie drawing another card, because that Diablo continues to be exerted.
That Diablo may not be around for too long. Ed finding a Sisu off the top deck. There it comes down, taking that Diablo, wiping the whole board paired with the Sapphire Quills. That is absolutely brutal. Oh, man, what a turn.
Elie has drawn so many cards as well off of these this tragedy of heroes. We've had a couple of triggers of the Diablo, so Elie has really dug and does have more resources, but that is such a board-breaking play. The Sisu coming down, wiping out everything. The Sapphire Coil obviously able to reduce the strength of a character by 2 when you put a card into your inkwell, and they do stack. So that's why the Beast Tragic Hero was also removed, courtesy of Sisu's ability, which well, it doesn't target, but it removes characters with 2 strength or less. Doesn't target, quite specifically important for getting around the ward keyword. And down comes the Tamatoa, so shiny.
That's true. So we have both Tamatoas here on board. The medium Tamatoa, the big Tamatoa. Let's not forget about Drab Little Crab, baby Tamatoa off an Emerald. Never sees play, but he's still there.
I do love that, though. That's one of the best things about Lorcana, right? Is because you never see the Drab Little Crab in the film, right? It's just mentioned in the song.
Yeah.
So the fact that the artist, the Lorcana dev team, were like, okay, well, let's see what that looked like. Absolutely, I'm so in love with this game, man. But this So Shiny Tamatoa is super good on play and on quest. You can return an item from your discard to your hand, and even more. He loves an item, does Tamatoa. All of them do, to be fair, but this one in particular will gain 1 more lore for every item that we have in play, and we do have a lucky dime that has been found courtesy of the new Scrooge Resourceful Miser. Our Sisu's going to go on a quest that's going to take us up to 13, Liam, and I do believe we are threatening game at this point in time because we have the lucky dime in hand. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Even without the dime, we are threatening game, Liam. I think this might be over.
This is pretty much all the parts of this deck on the board right now. We have both crabs. We have the diamond hand, Scrooge McDuck, all of the pieces here with all of the item synergy. Yeah, it's going to be hard for Elie to come back with this. He does have a couple Brunos. We can sing and send some of those characters back to hand, maybe stall this a little bit.
The Storm on the Tamatoa, just drawing another card. I think Elie sees the writing on the wall. You can see the facial expression, and he extends the hand.
My goodness, this very first one, Chiu is going to be the